What's up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another movie review. And today we are talking about 2025's The Long Walk. And I think this came out just at the end of 2025, so I probably will stick this on like my Letterboxd 2026 list because I wasn't able to watch it in 2025 and I was just able to watch it yesterday. And last night it was really a good movie, but the longer and longer you go into this movie, the more and more fucked it gets. You know what I mean? And if you know the premise, you know, but like we'll talk about that in a moment. But the cast is pretty freaking stellar in this, and I will say I watched this because I'm a fan of Cooper Hoffman and I wanted to see more things with him in it, and David Johnson. The two of them had great chemistry, but also David Johnson's going to be the new Black Panther as like an older T'Challa Jr., you know, and he's going to be the Black Panther in Black Panther 3. So that's definitely interesting for David Johnson for that to be his next role. And previously I saw him in Alien Romulus and he was fantastic in that. Cooper Hoffman, I probably saw him in Saturday Night, was probably one of the only movies I've actually seen him in, but I feel like he's been in other stuff that I've seen as well. But Cooper Hoffman is Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, so maybe that's why I think he's been in more stuff. But Ben Wong's also in here. He's the new Karate Kid with, you know, that Karate Kid Legends movie. He is the new Karate Kid with Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio coming back and like bringing this new kid on to be the new Karate Kid. So hopefully he gets more stuff to do with that. And just recently I also saw him in Gail Daughtry's Celebrity Sex Pass, which was just a funny ass movie as well. Cooper Hoffman's mother was Judy Greer in here, and like she didn't have very many scenes, but when she was on the screen it was kind of sad. And then really the only other like star of this movie is Mark Hamill as the major of like the army that is running this whole thing. And I don't like, it didn't necessarily explain like why they're doing this, like maybe they win some big prize at the end of this, but the whole premise is really fucked for this whole long walk. And I think by the end they walk something like 320 something miles straight without stopping, or if they did, they died, you know what I mean? And the little letterbox synopsis for this reads, "The task is simple: walk or die." In a dystopian 1970s America, 50 teenage boys take part in a deadly annual walking contest, forced to maintain a minimum pace or be executed until only one survivor remains. And oh god, like you almost know who's going to be the final two, but just to like see how they get there. And I will say the one thing about this movie is like, sure, this starts with 50 of them, and then slowly but surely they get whittled down, and like sometimes, you know, they start going uphill at one point. Everyone starts falling behind in pace because they're already like 200 miles in, and you know, some people roll their ankles, some people's feet are bleeding, and they just, you know, they're cramping up, you know, they just can't go on, you know, like marathon runners and shit. Like a marathon is 26 miles, which everyone can look at a marathon runner and be like, you're crazy. This shit, 300 miles for a contest, right? And like, I don't care how long I have to walk to win how much, like that is, it better be world-changing money to walk 300 miles and have to have watched 49 other people die to get that money. Like, oh god. And I don't even think it's necessarily money they win. It's your wish. Whatever you wish for, you can get. And I thought the ending was quite, you know, satisfying the way it was. But I don't know, man. Like, you know, now spoilers for, like, the ending, because I want to talk about who actually survives in that ending and why is it so important. But like the cast throughout the whole thing, like the four musketeers or the three musketeers, that friggin' Gary Barkovich, friggin' terrible, the kid, like Charlie Plummer is that kid. And he was absolutely terrible, right? Like, well, not necessarily as an actor, just as a character, right? Like, every time he said something, like, he was just all fucked up in the head. He's like, I just wanted to be friends with you guys. He's, like, smacking himself and, like, sabotaging, trying to sabotage other people. He's like, yeah, I should be cheering. That's better for us. He's like, dude, I'm not gonna cheer because one of these guys gets killed because of these fucking guys. And, like, they all are quiet at the beginning. And at a certain point, you know, Mark Hamill's like, you guys should be proud. And he's like, oh, shut the fuck up, fuck you. And they're like, fuck you to the major. And he's like, yeah, that's what's gonna win you this, boys. This is what's got you sacked, you know, like, oh god. And then like one of the poor kids ends up being like the Major's bastard, so he's like trying his hardest, but he gets like sick. He's like, I can feel my lungs filling with fluid. I'm gonna go out, boys. Just don't look, okay? You know, like he was one of the final three. I was like, ooh, you know, like you knew David Johnson and Cooper Hoffman were gonna be the final two. But like seeing Hank Olson, friggin' Ben Wang go out, friggin' Arthur Baker going out. The only one that kind of went out like a savage was friggin' Collie Parker, who was number 48, which was like the Indian kid. And he was like a badass the whole time. But finally he just has enough. He grabs one of their guns, kills one of the soldiers, and then gets shot at himself in the gut. And then he just kind of starts to sing like a Native American chant as they kill him. And it's like, oh, you know, and some of them are terrible. Like guy tries to climb onto the tank, they push him off, the tank runs over his legs, and like they're all just like having to watch each of these brutal murders. And like I like that they didn't cut away, you know what I mean? Because like, yeah, they're brutal and they're terrible, but that's kind of the whole point of this movie. And it's almost like 50 different ways or 49 different ways on how they could kill somebody. And you know, clearly they couldn't come up with 49 different ideas. You know, they're still on this road, so there's only so many ways that they can lose the contest, you know what I mean? So for me, I was like, this is a really good movie, but there's certain people like, I was like, oh god, it was brutal to see like the little 18-year-old, 16-year-old kid Curly die. And like there was quite a few characters in this movie that we didn't even necessarily, you know, like they didn't get a lot of speaking lines. They just all of a sudden are characters in the background that are dead, you know, and like you just feel so bad. Like one kid gets the runs mid-walk and he has to like try to pinch off a loaf, and like he only has 3 warnings, right? Like, and they give you the warnings if you get below your speed, and after the 3rd warning you're dead. But like, you know, they're sitting there pointing a gun at your head as he's like trying to pinch off a turd, and then he's got to get back up to speed, right? And like, so they give you 3 warnings, and if you get below speed again, then you just instantly die, right? Like, so you have to go, if you get 3 warnings, you have to go 3 miles without having another warning, and you kind of get those warnings back. So you can kind of like use your warnings and then like get, you know, but you then have to be good for 3 miles straight to gain back those warnings, you know what I mean? So some of these guys are getting warnings and then they're like, oh shit, and they're hustling up, and then like he's delusional at one point. He's like, I can't do this, and like, you know, David Johnson grabs him and keeps pushing him forward. And like there was a couple of times that Cooper Hoffman's character would have died and like would have just like failed, but David Johnson like kept him going, you know. And like his whole character Peter had like a scar on his face. He's like, I got nobody, man, you're gonna make it back to your mom. And like he kind of keeps pushing him forward as like he's like, yeah man, come on, you're coming with me, you're not letting me win, you're walking, just walk with me a little bit longer. He's like, okay. And then he pushes him forward. He's like, man, I'll walk with you a little longer. And then Cooper Hoffman stops and he gets killed, and leads Dave. Oh, like they both tried to fake each other out, and like David Johnson stopped so Cooper would win, and then like Cooper runs back so that David won't die, and then, you know, pushes David forward, and David starts walking and he stops, and then, you know, you just see him like just keep walking as Cooper just fades off in the background, and we hear the gunshot, and he turns around like, no, no, you know, like they won't let him come up to Cooper, and all he wants to do is be like, come on man, you know, he's like holding him, and he's like, you deserve it, man, you always did, I wouldn't have made it without you, you know, like, and he never gets to see his mom again, and like, oh my god, it just, I don't know, it felt like a really good movie, it felt like a good ending, but also by the time I got to that end, I was like, oh, what, this is kind of pointless, you know, like, he you know, wins, and he wanted Cooper to win, and like I feel like they kind of, you know, they were brothers, but like there was also maybe David Johnson's character was gay, and he kind of liked and had like a crush on Cooper Hoffman. So I don't know, there was like little undertones in there as well. But at the end of the day, they were like brothers, and what Cooper wanted to do at the end of this whole thing was, if he won, he wanted to ask for the carbine and kill the Major. So David Johnson, in memory of his brother, or at least his character, you know, in memory of Cooper Hoffman's character, he wishes for the carbine, and they're like, you'll get one. He goes, no, I want that one. Give it to him. He gives him the carbine. He instantly points it at Mark Hamill's face, and he's like, no, you don't have to do this. You're throwing away all your prize. Come on, man, you're gonna be more wealthy than anybody. And he's just like, this is for Raymond, and he shoots fucking, oh god. And Mark Hamill makes a pretty damn good villain, but it's just funny that like that's Luke Skywalker, who was like the bad guy this whole film, making these guys walk. And like, you know, like he's the one who puts a bullet through Cooper Hoffman's head because he was number 2, right? Like, so he pretty much kept going home and showering and then meeting back up with these guys as they were walking on the road, and then they would like, oh wow, congratulations, and it's like, why does he still look clean as fuck? Meanwhile, we've been walking for days in a row, you know, like hundreds of miles in a row, and like all the troops that are like pointing guns at them, they're all sitting on tanks. They don't have to fucking walk at all, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh god, these bastards, man, what a terrible fucking annual event to have to do. And it's like a draft, and you get drafted into the long walk. Yeah. What is top 10 things I do not want to do with my life is the long walk. It's pretty much walking from like here to what is 300 miles away, like fucking New York, from Boston to New York, probably more, I don't know, maybe less, I don't know. It seems like a terribly long way to walk for absolutely nothing, you know, and he kills the major, and then I thought like David Johnson's character was going to get lit up at the end, but then he just kind of turns off and then walks off into the distance. It's like, oh, well, he's still walking. It's like we didn't just watch him walk for fucking 2 hours. Like, I don't know. I felt like the ending should have had something. Like maybe he went back over to Cooper Hoffman's body and he took the rosary beads off of his neck, and then he went back for Arthur Baker and brought those rosary beads to his grandmother. Maybe he brought, you know, something else, maybe the 47 tag or something that Cooper had, you know, back to his mother, you know, and maybe he just like, maybe we could have seen what he did with his money, you know what I mean? And like maybe he used his money and like because he killed the major, maybe there is no long walk the next year. You know, like I felt like we could have seen some aftermath, but it kind of just was like, all right, we're walking, he won, over. And it's like, you know, I felt like maybe there could have been a little something more at the end there. It definitely didn't make me want to see a sequel or anything like that. It was just like a little one-off movie with like a crazy premise. And I'm glad I watched it, and I could see why people were saying Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson's performances in this movie were so good, because they really were, you know, and I genuinely really enjoyed this movie despite it being fucked up. But yeah, great performances, well done. And for what it is, I mean, it's still like a 3 out of 5 stars for me, like a 6 out of 10. You know, I like a little bit more action, a little bit more entertaining movie. I'm not necessarily into watching guys walk for 2 hours, you know, like, but it was still a good premise and a good movie. I recommend you checking it out, but, you know, recommend best movie of the year? Nah, probably not. But still a good movie nonetheless. So go check it out. Now streaming on HBO Max. I just checked it out last night. And yeah, more movie reviews will be coming out tomorrow. There'll be something else after I watch something tonight. I'm somebody I like to tend to watch a movie a night. But I don't know. I've been kind of struggling on what I should watch next. So if you have any movie recommendations, please drop those down in the comment section below. And I highly appreciate anybody who made it this far into the video. And if you would like to support the channel further, the best way of doing that is liking this video, commenting down below, subscribing if you haven't already, and hitting that bell so you don't miss future movie reviews and you get the notifications when those come out. Once again, my name is Big Cam, and I'll see you gorgeous folks in the next video. Peace!